Tonight I'm going to be reading the founder of Satanism, Anton LaVey. And I have to say, he has the, if not one of the rarest placements to actually have Saturn in. And if you're familiar, Saturn is actually seen sometimes as one of the planets that Saturnus is most related to. And just for kicks and for giggles. His strongest planet is tied between Sun, Jupiter, and Venus. And Venus is Lucifer. But before I get into this, I figured I would just say a nice little prayer, just to get the vibe going, and I'm going to read the one that's in my Lilith book. And also, his Black Moon Lilith placement is pretty close, almost the same as mine, sign-wise, but it's in the 12th. And if you know how when she's placed in the 12th house, that's one of the placements that I say that she is more likely to work with someone. But without further ado, slide you there. Okay. Maven of the night, upon flight of black wings, egalitarian of the aware, upon grace of poise at flow, the light soon to die, for my power is nigh, for she of shadow arrives, to flight, to grace and poise, to captivate, to empower and allure. Man's tale always ends in passing, but I'm not of man's, and I will not die. Just got goosebumps. But anyway, let's take it from the top. We have Anton LaVey's birthday, April 11th, 1930 at 3:10 a.m. in Chicago, Illinois. Thus, he has these placements. Rising sign Lugna is Aquarius. Sun, Aries, Exalted. Moon, Virgo. Mars in Pisces. Mercury in Taurus. Jupiter in Gemini. Venus in Taurus, own sign. Shani, Saturn, Capricorn, own sign. Rahu, the North Node. Taurus, Exalted. Ketu, Scorpio, the South Node of the Moon. Own sign. Uranus, Aries. Neptune, Virgo, retrograde. Pluto, Cancer. And Black Moon Lilith, Aquarius. Let's begin. Right off the bat, Lilith would be considering him as one of her own, right off the bat. Reason being, she is actually at 5 degrees of Aquarius, and his degrees of being in an Aquarius ascendant is at 24. Thus, Lilith would be placed right here in the subconscious of like out of body. That being said, Lilith could actually communicate with him exceptionally well. And because since it's Aquarius, she's actually able to give him the higher knowledge that he needed to be able to find the religion. But it gets even better than that. Let's just go with the rare placement just to get it out of the way, because this is actually the biggest pointing to saying of finding a belief system or serving humanity as a whole by providing them something without any expectation in return. And if you heard from my channel before about this rare nakshatra, Anton LaVey has it with his Saturn in 11 degrees Capricorn. That's the very last bit of Abhijit, the constellation. That's the hidden lunar mansion that I've talked about before, and also the reason why Capricorn is the most supreme. Oh, and the Capricorn, the sign of the sea goat, the go-ahead, it's also connected to Satanism. Here comes the beauty with it. Whenever Anton was building his religious and pretty much laying the foundation and pushing it out there for people, as he's pushing it out there, he's bestowing this belief and how this way of living and how to give a broader and more, trying to find the right word for it. Essentially, the way that he taught wasn't really meant to benefit him. Even though it was benefiting him, he was actually pushing it out there so that way everybody can actually understand that if you're repressing yourself, you should be allowed to feel the feelings that you feel, regardless of what they are. And what's taboo is what's pursued. When you pursue that what's suppressed, you're actually also burning off those desires. His Venus has directional strength in the fourth house in Critica. And also, like I said before, Venus represents Lucifer. So Lucifer in the sign of Critica, that's the constellation Critica. In Taurus, which is about the comforts, the wealth, the luxury, and the physical desires of the senses in the fourth house. Venus has directional strength. Essentially, his Venus placement is giving him the vision when he's ever in a state of conveniency and comfort. Okay, this is where I need to go. And Critica is actually related, funny enough, to a sharp blade that's meant to cut through. You're giving, this is the best way I can put it, you're giving Lucifer a blade, and he knows exactly where to go in the fourth house. And that's a moksha house. In other words, whenever he is in the comfort of home or in conveniency or a state of security, which does include an astral temple, that counts, he's actually able to cut and pave the way for the light to come in, because that's Critica. Lucifer's the rising star, that one who brings enlightenment. That's not even the end of it. But specifically, again, with that Saturn in Abjit, if he does anything that to provide for the working class, or even society, or even the world at large, instant success. He, he founded Satanism. Instant success. Even though sometimes there might be moments of there were things like scandals going on potentially, doesn't matter. Still success. Because it's still alive today. It's still going. And even despite the kind of vulgar stereotypes, the mistreatment of the people that believe in Satanism, it's still standing. Hasn't changed, hasn't gone anywhere. And by the way, going back to his Venus, at 146%, Venus also represents somebody's legacy. That being said, Venus again has a blade, cuts through BS, cuts through with clear direction on where to go. After paving and cutting the way, he actually has his legacy being the founder of this religion of Satanism. And since Saturn represents the working class and the people. And also Venus is the guru. Remember, the guru to the Asurers or demons cuts through the BS. Legacy gets restored because of a religious faith being brought down to man. And it's still standing. But not even that. His sun, his sun sign is in Aries, exaltation, in burning. In other words, his sole purpose of coming into this world is to come in and uplift and transform people out of death, out of a state of suffering, out of something that was not pretty much taking people from a state where they can't see and showing them that light, which somebody's light can be somebody else's darkness. But specifically, I can bet you this: if it wasn't for Anton LaVey, there would be many, 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 many lights that wouldn't be up and awake right now. A lot of awarenesses would still be lost. Even me. So his soul already knew to take initiative to transform those that are dead to light. Because Barney is about Yama, the god of death. And as soon as Yama comes into something that's dead, brings it back to life. Because all the death does goes, flips it over, and it gets going again. His Mars is in Redefti, in Pisces, in the first house. My mistake. It's in the second. It's so close to the degree, but in the second house now. That goes to show the way that he speaks, the way that he talks, has a really enchanting way of speaking, but it's active speaking. It has the way that he spoke, it was captivating, but it was able to move really quick. And if since his sun is in the third house of communication, also known as the way he, and the words he uses to communicate, essentially, if somebody, like for an example, if he was like on a talk show host, and if somebody was making fun of him, he would actually be able to speak in a way that's so gentle, but it's like a backhand of the face. And he, that sun in the third house, that and Bernie, he can actually take somebody who's trying to knock him down and just go, "Oh, you're just asking just to be, tonight's, yeah, in tonight's ritual." But put it in a way that actually makes him go, "Tonight's ritual, huh? Why do you say that?" And then later on down the line, they're like, "Oh, that's what he meant." Because that Pisces, the tone. And he also, it being Pisces in his house of security, wealth, fixed assets, and family, most of his fixed assets comes from involving being intoxicated. That's just Pisces. But also spirituality plays a huge part in him having his assets and fixed assets. Oh, I didn't know if you heard that. Just heard a loud bang next to my window, but we'll go with it. Now, let's take a look at his moon in Virgo, Chitra. Chitra is all about crystals, gemstones, fine tuning things, and managing, and perfecting, and organizing, and structuring. So now you're putting his moon there. And moon is his planet with the highest degree, the Atmakarka, which also represents him. And moon is in the eighth house. In other words, what brings him a sense of mental peace and security in the mind, and what makes him feel whole is organizing and structuring things that are deemed secretive, of the occult, the unknown, and instances where there can be, say, an accident. The placements of Lilith, well, there's only one placement of Lilith. I mean, there are other bodies named Lilith, but I only read the Black Moon Lilith placement. And you can know which one that is by just seeing the moon symbol, and it goes down, and then there's like the plus. It's like a plus, and then it has a moon on the top. That's the only real major Lilith position I look at. Dark Moon and Asteroid, I don't really read. And you use true Lilith. If you can't use true, then you can use the mean calculation. But in Chitra, in order for him to find stability and peace, he has to be able to take a situation that involves secrecy, the occult, or even somebody else's money. And in that case, when he's able to structure occult rituals and being able to organize and plan everything and manage these rituals, or even being able to create beauty with the rituals, because believe it or not, like with occult rituals and ceremonial magic, the way that it's done, it's an art. And that takes a lot of time to structure, plan it, and actually to have everything be laid out and have people in their certain positions if there's more than one person and following a strict guideline that's laid out. That brings him mental peace. Now, Rahu and Ketu. This is where it can get kind of crazy. We're going to start with Ketu. Ketu is in Anuradha, which is a nakshatra all about friendships, to the point where Anuradha has the potential for somebody to be like, I'm devoted to you. No, I'm devoted to you. I'm stuck with you. It's like what Scorpio is known for, the stalker kind of energy. But now here's the thing. K2 as a planet is meh with it. I already know what's in this book. Meh with it. Meh. Okay, if I have to do it, fine. But again, the sign of Scorpio represents the occult, secrecy. Hello, Blue. So when you're putting K2 in the sign he owns, Scorpio, he's like, okay, I already know everything in here, so meh with it. You get the idea. But in the 10th house, so his reputation and standing in society, he's meh with it. He's so detached from it, and he's like, yeah, I already know how fame is and all that. I'm not really fond about that. I want to go where Rahu's at. And where Rahu's at is in the 4th house with Venus and Mercury. And Rahu's exalted there. He is a Aries sun with an Aquarius ascendant. But now here comes this great part. If you heard earlier, Rahu is with Venus and Mercury. All three are in Kritika. The one that is the lowest degree is Mercury. But now here's the thing. Rahu goes backwards. Rahu is coming right towards his Mercury. So they're pretty much 1, 3. Rahu is about to collide with his Mercury. But now here's the thing. Rahu in Kritika goes like this. I want this. I'm going for it. Out of the way. So Rahu over that's best way to put it. Overkills the significance of both Mercury and Venus. What was Venus again? Legacy. And she has directional strength with that blade. And Rahu with Venus, Rahu bows Venus. Because Rahu is an Ashura, a demon. Venus is a guru to the demons. Rahu sees his guru behind him. abides by what's asked of him. Venus says, go this way. Rahu grabs the blade, goes right for it. So his legacy, hey, Maddie. So Rahu being ordered by Venus to go and get the, excuse me, to get, from this. Essentially, Venus is giving the order to Rahu to go and cut through whatever has to be cut through for this desire to come through. And since it's Kritika, essentially he has a lot of push to push something that he is desiring for. And since Rahu, one, two, Rahu is looking at his moon, in his moon, in the eighth, in Chitra, Virgo, Rahu's looking right at it. So Rahu is now like, but also Venus is still pushing him. He has the desire to actually do the structuring with the cult and pretty much organizing and structuring it and making things be the best they can be. But also Rahu is looking over at Saturn in Abjit, and he has almost the same identical effects with Jupiter. Rahu, looking now with the ninth aspect at Saturn's like, I'm going to be so lucky because I'm going to get this. So Rahu now goes and cuts through just to get a hold of the 12th house where Saturn's at in Abjit. Rahu goes relentless to get that victory. And because, here's another one. Being an Aquarius ascendant, his Venus, automatically a Yogacaraka, meaning a lucky planet, because she owns the 4th and the ninth. Pretty much it goes like this. Venus is an own sign in the 4th. Okay, own sign. She also owns the ninth house of divinity, higher forms of thinking, philosophy. So she takes that in too. Gives all this to Rahu, goes relentless towards that Saturn and the moon. With his mind and then the assurance of victory, his Rahu is able to relentlessly charge to get a hold of both. And it definitely doesn't stop there because his Jupiter in the 5th house also points right towards the 11th house of gains, wishes bestowed, desires given. I go live. I usually try my best to go live every day when I can, but if I'm not able to, usually it's the next day. But so it's Jupiter looking at the 11th house of gains in that's his own sign of Sagittarius. Mind that. So now we have Jupiter looking at the ninth, his ninth house of where Libra is at, and that's Venus. Again, he's blessing that house. Looking at the 11th house of wishes and fulfillment of desires, blessing that house, and also the Lugna. So now Jupiter is now blessing Anton's existence in Aquarius, which is also the sign connected to the highest point before it goes down to Pisces. once once I'm like finished speaking about this, you may. But I do have one more chart after the bombshell one that I'm going to read, which is going to be his D60. Yeah, I'm going to be reading his D60 chart because it's pretty much almost the exact same thing as how this is placed. His D1 and D60 have the same ascendant, which on his own is already potent. Let's see. But for now, his D9, his marriage chart, and the pretty much the path he was supposed to walk. Now Saturn becomes Yogacaraka. In his birth chart, Venus, Lucifer, this is Yogacaraka. Marriage chart, the D9 chart, the second half of life chart. Shani becomes his Yogacaraka. His fourth house becomes the Lugna. If this thing would be so kind of scooch over. There we go. So now we have Venus, Mercury, and Rahu conjunct his, and I'm using the technique of putting two charts on one another to actually see how they mingle with one another. So now his D9 Lugna is now on top of his fourth house. So he finds comfort and security and moksha, because that's the fourth house, being granted and pretty much promised. But now, his Saturn in the D9 is in the same house. So that's Bhavottama, this being in the same house as the birth chart. But now it's in burning, where Saturn is the most agitated. But nonetheless, Saturn is still his Yogacaraka. That being said, when we scooch over down to here, we come to find out in his D9 Navamsha chart, there is not one house under 28 points based on these calculations. There's not one house under 28. His strongest house, the strongest house, is the sixth house, the eighth house, the second house, the Lugna, the third house, fourth, 10th, fifth, 9th, 11th. Every single house that I just said has at least 30 points. At least 30. So that kind of goes to show he most definitely leaves a legacy behind. And when we scooch to his D60, having the almost identical ascendant, he already knows where he has to go in his life. He knows which direction to take and how to best go about it. But here we go again. I'm actually going to read another one. His D24, that's the chart you look at for somebody's faith and connection to divinity, religious practice. He has Jupiter Vagottama. In other words, Jupiter is in the same sign as another chart, his D1. So, and also Jupiter has directional strength in the fourth house as well. Venus and Sun are in the 10th house. Sun has directional strength. His soul and his connection to divinity and teachings of divinity have this strong connection. They know exactly where to go, both of it at each other. So soul and divinity's teachings connect perfectly in that chart. Mars is in the 8th house in Libra. Saturn and Moon are in the 2nd house. So essentially, divinity may not be bestowing him a lot of wealth at first, and any kind of means to get wealth from it is not going to be the most ideal. But when he's actually able to give to people that are of the unwanted, the unprivileged, that's how he's able to gain and leave a legacy behind. And that's said this way. His karmic service, looking at his D1, involves the 9th house. That's Libra. owned by Venus, Lucifer. His karma and what he must do involves religion, higher forms of intelligence. What was the religion he founded? Satanism. He performed his karma exactly how he was supposed to, and thus has laid the foundation and has made a great legacy. Because it's still in effect today. Regardless of what anybody says, thinks, or what have you. It's still going. And it's still the faith. Still the religious faith. Deal with it. And at least in my loving opinion, I have to say, I never really found anything. In fact, I actually kind of admire Anton LaVey, to be completely honest. Because he actually did teach of the Venetian way of living. Don't suppress yourself. Enjoy yourself. Let yourself go. Enjoy the world around you. Although there was that aspect of being rebellious and pushing back, but still, when something's repressed for so long, you really can't help but just watch it just explode. And that's usually what happens. Excuse me. I was not expecting these to be crunchy, but still. So I will leave the floor open for now. I would go longer, but my throat's kind of killing me. So, but still. I hope that kind of does show, especially that Saturn in Abjit, the constellation of victory in Selavan, Capricorn. So essentially, again, and Lilith is right behind his head, telling him exactly what he needs to do in Aquarius, giving him the higher knowledge to structure because Black Moon Lilith relies on Moon in order to exist. So Black Moon Lilith does take some of that, qualities of Moon and puts it into his head. Especially when it comes down to occult means, Black Moon Lilith helps him organize and structure it, and he finds the most empowerment in spirituality, other worlds, being connected to divinity in some way, shape, or form. And Saturn is right behind it, pretty much showing that his his escape from this world makes it, and he leaves a legacy that stands. I know I said that over and over again, but look what's going on. It's still standing. And believe me, it's been knocked and swung at so much. Still standing. And I know a lot of beautiful people that believe in that faith. And it's still standing. It ain't going nowhere. You really all I have to say about that is just like, it's not going to go anywhere. So stop trying. Because even the planets back it up. So now I'll leave it to open floor. So if you want your questions to ask, you can now. But I won't be on much longer because my throat's killing me. Let him go. The pin somewhere now. It's gone. Oh well, it happens. Oh, there it is. How was my high school life? I was actually a really quiet emo kid, and I didn't really talk to a lot of people. I kept to myself, but I did make it known that, well, I kept to myself, but I did make it known that, well, at the time, I was doing cage fighting. Mm-hmm. Like the Otacon kind of stuff. And just me mentioning that, everybody was like, "Oh." Part of me is thinking too that a lot of people are like, "Well, he is an emo kid, and I don't know if he has a knife on him." Yeah, it's supposed to be a satiric joke. Come on now. But no, I wasn't really. I was really selective of who I hanged out with and I was interacting with when I was in high school. Very reserved and quiet. Yeah, no, I was more meh. It is what it is. And then my junior year came in 2010, and that changed every bloody thing. But look, there's the pen I was looking for. But I couldn't. But I wouldn't really be here if it wasn't for, you know, that incident meeting somebody. So yeah, we all can thank him for that one. Hmm. I really miss being in high school, to be honest. How to change everything? Well, let's put it this way. Your first love, your first everything, and still involved with him after 11 years. Still. And before, I never really was with anybody. Never really had a really intense commitment. No, not really commitment, but like an intense bond with someone. First, still standing. Because it just, even me saying that just makes me think, wow, 11 years still? Wow. Mm-hmm. And the first thing that comes to my mind is like, okay, 11 years, and look at that. Yep, still attached to it. So, if I can do it, how come we're having issues staying committed and devoted to someone? Not calling anybody out, but I mean, I'm just like, if I can do it, well, what's the issue? And believe me, I've gone through a lot of headaches, a lot of why, a lot of those. Like, oh, why? Why? Still, still standing with it. Like, also not only like facepalm, like, oh, dimwit, but just like, oh, the average person would have been like, oh, nope, I'm done. Nope. And besides, also, don't blame me. I'm just doing what I'm supposed to do. I said I'd stick, so I'm sticking. So, if I didn't say that, would it be different? Yeah, probably. Whenever you have Lilith conjunct your ascendant point blank, essentially you have the best put it. Essentially, Lilith is sitting right on your head. So you have Lilithian thoughts in your head. Now being the sign of Virgo. Here's how this goes. Lilith in the sign of Virgo goes like this. You know what makes me you know what makes me empowered? Pretty much ridding BS. Anything that is just vile, if I'm able to go in and get rid of it, that makes me feel my most empowered and the most strong. You know how I captivate others and seduce others? Simple. I criticize them and I nitpick the living heck out of them. But me criticizing them, that actually drives them mad to keep pursuing, because they keep trying. But one of the potential points of trauma comes from pretty much being self-critical of oneself. That causes a lot of damage. But I never finished yet. One gets vengeance by bringing oneself up and then turning around and completely decimating by micromanaging and completely tearing to shreds whoever was trying to knock you down. Because that's Virgo. And Lilith is one of the representations on how you can see somebody actually get their revenge. Virgo with Lilith. You have the one who takes action against impurity. So essentially, Lilith gets vengeance by taking a stab at what's not pure and what's trying to harm her. And now, since Moon, let's see, no. Well, if you have Lilith conjunct the ascendant degree, it's technically in the first house because it's on point blank. That's the Lugna. So point blank Lugna goes on right in your head. It doesn't get any much more closer than that. So essentially, Lilithian thoughts are in your head, which is a good thing because the advantage of that is that you have confidence and empowerment of yourself to the highest degree. And I know my worth, okay? Someone tries to, knock me down, I'm gonna build myself up and just start nitpicking the living heck out of them. Best of all, Lilith is a shadow planet just like Rahu and Ketu, nodes of the moon. But here's the thing with Lilith. Do you think Lilith would play by the rules? Absolutely not. So because of that, she does not do everything the same thing as everybody else does. Take for example this. I have Saturn aspecting my Lilith. It doesn't affect her. Remember, she doesn't play by the rules. Well, she's in conjunct something. It doesn't affect her. She doesn't play by the rules. She's conjunct Moon. Now that's something that's serious. Because Lilith protects the Moon. Because without the Moon, she doesn't exist. So she goes tooth and nail in protecting the Moon by any means necessary. In opposition, if something is trying to influence her, it doesn't affect her, unless if it's Moon. And wherever Moon's at, Lilith embodies some of that too. Because the Moon is her dispositor. Without Moon, Lilith does not exist. So that explains that as simplistic as I can put it. Some people have the thought that Lilith can be retrograde. Black Moon Lilith cannot be retrograde because you can't really watch a mathematical point that's you can't see. You can't notice it. Because that's Virgo. Virgo's a sign that's also self-critical. It's all about criticism. And then you need to start looking into your empowerment of the self then. If other people are influencing how you care about something else or making you feel the need to worry about something else, if it's not giving you any kind of benefit, if it's not doing anything for you, heck, if it's not giving you anything at all that benefits you, nope. Like if somebody's like making remarks about how you dress, pull this on them. Oh, why are you being so obsessed about how I dress, huh? You're just mad because, you don't have these shoes, huh? Well, hey, I can have that hat on your head. It looks like, a piece of crap. But thank God I don't have that. I definitely wouldn't want a shithead. Okay? And they turn relentless on you. I hate that. Don't stoop to their level. Well, wise man once said this. If an idiot swings at you, you swing back, but harder. Convey a message like, oh, you're going to mess with me? No. A threat's a threat. That's it. If somebody threatens your well-being, don't matter. You are entitled to have your well-being protected and secure. If someone threatens that, take them out. Neutralize them. Put yourself first. Or even just get them into a position where you can get away. Not like take them out, like, no. Absolutely not. Unless, of course, if it's life or death, but, use your head, be realistic here. But if your life in the moment is threatened, you have to do what you have to do to get out of that situation. Even if you gotta pop the cherries underneath, the stomach, below the stomach. Do what you gotta do to get away. Because in the real world, there's technically no such thing as foul play. If your life depends on it, pop them cherries down below. Do what you gotta do. It's not about a thing like being more realistic. It's more about the thing of conveying a message like, hey, you see what happened to this idiot? Let's not be like this idiot. Really? By any chance, are any of those people that just watched that happen to you? Are you still in contact with any of those people? I hope not. Because there's one thing for sure. If I was in that situation, and if I just saw other people just, watching and not doing anything about it, and they were aware of that was happening to me, as soon as it was over and done with, and a few days later, they come towards me, I would just tell them point blank, what do you want? What? You want to hang out with me? No. Why would I hang out with somebody who doesn't, take initiative to help someone that they know and that's supposed to be a friend or even a relative? Why am I gonna even have anything to do with you? Scum. Don't look at me. Who was the one that didn't take initiative? Since they didn't take initiative, they don't deserve to have this. hmm Still. And specifically, if there's somebody that says, "Oh, I'll be there for you," yet they never do anything and never are there. Again, pardon my vulgarity, but spit on the face. Scum. That's it. Scum. Nothing is more vile than saying that somebody is there for you, yet they really don't give a shit what's happening to you, or even make an effort to even care. Because that's just like, really? Well, aren't you giving a lot of false hope? So, meh. Because that's like the lowest of the low right there. And it takes really, honestly, a special kind of a heartless twathead to not care about somebody that they're supposedly are caring about, and yet they do nothing about it. That's like, okay. So remind me if you're shipwreck. No, Rahu in the eighth house in Aries. So essentially, you have this. One has obsession. Well, it kind of has a bit of a hmm. Well, since it's Aries and Rahu, um, there is an obsession for those kind of interactions if you catch my drift, and a lot of eccentric and kind of mind-boggling. Primarily, a lot of physical action as well in secrecy. Has an intense obsession to get more active in terms of occult. Has strong, potent initiative in emergencies. And is able to take initiative during times of transformation too. If it involves anything like regarding coal mining, the placement can also give a lot of potential wealth and a lot of energy to actually dig into the earth and get like the gemstones or crystals or anything of the earth that has value to it. Chiron, I don't read. I do not read Chiron. Pretty much the asteroids I don't read because I'm not that confident in reading them yet. But now Black Moon Lilith again is a shadow planet, not an asteroid, not the asteroid one. Well, the thing is, nothing wrong with that. It is what it is. It is what it is. It's not bad or good. It's just how it is. And don't feel ashamed of yourself, and don't feel like you're weak or anything like that. Because I don't know about you. If somebody's actually able to make themselves vulnerable like that effortlessly and being so trusting, wow, that actually shows a lot of strength and confidence in themselves. Because if somebody actually represses their emotions and all that, gee, looks like they're just aiming to trying to be a tough guy then. Trying to be like, oh, I'm not bothered by that, but on the inside they're like, oh. Being able to put yourself out there in the truth and 100% how it is and let your real self come out. That's more of the I'm just gonna say it. It's more of a butch thing to do than trying to be like a stereotypical tough guy. Don't look at me. It takes real confidence and security of the self to be oneself. Even if it makes you appear like, oh, he's so emotional. At least he's honest about it. Don't be hating. That's none of my business. What do I know? Well, to be completely honest, all I have to say about that is just like other people. Yeah, let me just rep these stones real quick. Boom. Well, first thought you need to have in your mind. Other people? Nope. Nope. Care, I have nothing. Don't care. You look sad? What, you jealous? You wish you could have hot dogs too then, huh? I'm the same way. If somebody says, "Fag," what are you, new here? Oh, you are new here. Here, come here. Let me show you around the town then. Let me give you a grand tour. If somebody is gonna say anything verbal like that to try and mess with you, take it and then slap them in the face with it. Here's one. Here's a real good one. Oh, this is so bad. God hates fags. Well, what do you think? They cause cancer. What do you think? Of course, is they're not gonna like them. They kill people. Oh, you meant the other fag? No, we don't. That's them. It's only hurt if you say it's hurt. That's it. Well, it's not really self-love, but it's just more like the idea of like knowing that if somebody is gonna be so willing to give me their time by saying something to try and mess with me, well, gee, thanks for your 2 seconds. You can't get them back. Thanks for that. Thanks for making me feel important. Can't get it back. Virgo is actually one of the signs that's actually the most harsh and critical and cruel because Virgo nitpicks. Literally, it can tear to shreds something. It can because you have purity combating impurity. In order for the impurity to die, the purity has to completely rip it to shreds. That's Virgo. Virgo is also represented by doctors, medicine, any kind of health and servitude, and taking action on the 3D plane to heal, mend. And sometimes to heal, you have to cut. And really, technically, by stereotype, signs really don't really have like a set personality attached to them. It's pretty much the planets and their significance being charged by the sign and how they express that. That's how you see it. Well, Mars and Gemini. Your Mars has directional strength in Gemini. And it's funny, in my Vedic chart, I have a Mars in Gemini too. So when it comes to communications and marketing and making your voice heard, you definitely know how to be all like, yeah, you do know how to energize, especially if it involves your hands. So you know what that means. If you have to, start table flipping. It's a metaphor. Don't really start flipping tables. Where's your Mercury located? Because wait a minute. Is your Mercury by any chance in the 11th? No, not the 11th. In the 6th? If it's in the 6th in Aquarius, oh, Well, that's convenient. You know why? Because whenever you have a planet that's pissed off, that's what I like to call it, instead of like debilitated. When it's drunk, it acts as if it's exalted. So when it comes to communicating with people, I don't I don't read stelliums. I'm one of those that likes to think, okay, that's making it too complicated. Complicated. Keep it simple. Like what my mentor taught me long ago. Keep it simple, stupid. Because if the more simple you keep it, the less headaches you get. And that's a true story. But the thing is, you rely on other people in order for you to expand your intelligence. Mm-hmm. Stellium, that's making it complicated. And it is what it is. So essentially, in order for you to develop your communication skills, you have to rely on people that are spiritually immature. In other words, if you're talking to somebody who's not really that spiritually aware, you kind of feel like, get away from me. You know, and also you don't like speaking to people who sound like they're drunk, or they're under the influence of something, or they're blinded by something, or if they're wishy-washy. Oh,